We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, July 10th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Kyun.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Also, Wonbing's with us.
Hello, good to be here.
Good to have you, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're finally at the end of the work week, but before we head into the weekend, let's turn our attention to an observance that highlights one of the world's biggest long-term challenges. So, World Population Day, marked every year on July 11th, puts global population issues in focus, from aging societies and falling birth rates to migration, urbanization, and unequal access to resources. So it's a timely reminder of the demographic changes reshaping societies around the world. So before we get into this, Kyun, can you tell us what exactly is World Population Day?
To add on to what you just said, World Population Day is an annual event held on July 11th, which seeks to raise awareness of global population issues, including family planning, maternal health, gender equality, and human rights. So it was established by the United Nations Development Programme in 1989, inspired by the world reaching about 5 billion people on July 11th, 1987. So in simple terms, the day is meant to remind governments and the public that population trends affect many parts of society, including healthcare, education, employment, housing, food security, and of course, the environment.
So, can you just mention how it reached 5 billion people on July 11th, 1987? So since then, how have global population trends shifted?
Right, so it's quite interesting because since the World Population Day was established in 1987, the world population was actually 5 billion back then, as Kyun just mentioned. And in 2026, which is about 40 years later, the number has gone up to 8 billion, from 5 billion to 8 billion, which is a 60% increase. Now, this definitely is a double-edged sword because, yes, the population is growing because the world is developing, but at the same time, some countries struggle from high birth rates and starvation and poverty, while other countries struggle with having low birth rates. So, in short, the rising population is causing polarization among countries and nations.
So today is a day for our weekly debate where we take a closer look at one of the world's biggest demographic challenges. So that's our topic today. And population trends are reshaping economies, societies, even the future of our planet. So before we get into our debate, let's start with the big question. Is the world still facing overpopulation problem, or are today's population challenges more complicated than that one?
Well, the answer would depend on your perspective. So this definitely is a subjective question in many ways. However, statistically, if we talk statistically, yes, we are facing an overpopulation problem right now, because just about 2,000 years ago, the world population was only 300 million, which is less than 5% of the current world population. And since civilization began to build its empire, we saw an exponential growth in the number of people on Earth. And this means that we are currently way above the natural population capacity of Earth, and there are voices saying that it is, excuse me, it is leading to climate changes and destruction of natural habitat.
So that view sees population growth as placing increasing pressure on both people and the planet. And obviously, climate change is another big issue. So is population or overpopulation really causing climate change?
There are differing views on this issue, like just one being mentioned. Some argue that it is misleading to think that population size directly affects climate issues. Now, according to one study, although the share of people born in low-income countries has doubled as proportion of the global population, their demand for resources, food, etc., still accounts for only 3% of the global demand, which pretty much goes against the theory. And this supports the view that the focus should be less on population numbers and more on regulating excessive carbon emissions or footprints of some developed countries, as it's those countries that pose a bigger threat and negative impact on the environment. And we've seen this through a lot of data as well. So basically, it's more about how one person acts, what they eat, what they consume, and what they emit at the same time, that it really affects the environment rather than the actual number of people.
Right. So I guess from that viewpoint, it's the bigger issue is not population itself, but it's more consumption. But the debate looks very different when we turn our focus to Korea, because obviously Korea, we hear about government policies always popping out different measures to promote population, increase the population. So, but why is South Korea facing such an opposite population challenge then?
The simple answer is fertility rate. South Korea has, all right, in recent years, we've seen signs of recovery since last year. Not recent year, from last year. But it hit a record low of 0.42 births per woman in 2023. Now, South Korea is considered one of the countries experiencing the fastest population decline in the world, and at the same time becoming one of the fastest aging population. So in response, the government has introduced various childbirth incentives, including the first meeting voucher and medical expense support, which offers benefits ranging from several million won to, in some cases, tens of millions of won for new parents, along with low interest rates for new young parents who seek to take out a mortgage loan on their first house. However, there are still differing opinions on the effectiveness and the potential side effects of trying to encourage childbirth. Some suggesting that it's not all about the money when it comes to raising a child, but rather a long-term commitment that many young people these days would rather not take at all, or kind of just push back as long as they can. Because, I mean, we have a longer life expectancy, people are living longer, healthier lives, which means that they don't really necessarily need to get married when our parents or even when our grandparents got married. So we like to delay that. And at the same time, there's so many socio-economic issues, like, can we afford a house before we get married? No, it's almost impossible, especially in the Seoul metropolitan area. And we have such a concentrated population here in the Seoul metropolitan area. So many young people are thinking, should I get married? How am I going to get married?
Can I get married?
Can I get married? So they kind of just give up on that and just live their own lives, which is one of the main reasons why we have such low fertility rates. Because even though a lot of people are actually getting married, they don't want to have kids. So they want to become DINK, double income, no income, no kids in that category. So like I said, this is a big issue that we have to change in many different areas, but we can't just say, oh, it's because of the population. You know, it's not because, just because we have low population, things are happening like climate issues. It's a serious issue that we all need to consider in many different areas.
And that's why we see so many targeted policies from the government these days, including with housing, although there's still a long way to go. So this all explains why boosting births has become such a national priority for Korea. But whether current policies are the right solution remains open to debate. And this leads us to our first debate question. Our panelists have paddles, OX paddles, ready. So the first question that I will be asking our panelists is, then should governments offer financial incentives to encourage people to have more children? So this is very relevant to people, because we're all living in Korea right now. So what are your thoughts on this, both of you? Yes or no on this? No for you, yes for Wonbin. So Wonbin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely agree on the cash incentive, cash bonus, because when the birth rate or fertility rate, when the population decreases in a country, it leads to catastrophic results that are basically irreversible. We're talking about depletion of national pension, lack of labor and manpower, and even having gaps in national defense. So in order to rapidly change the trend of the population and the birth rate of a country, and when I say rapidly, I don't mean like actually quickly, I mean like just in time to save the nation. They must offer highly attractive incentives to make people to have kids. And in case of Korea or most other countries, that would be, as the question said, a cash bonus. And if we don't do that, and if we wait until the population to rebound naturally, at that point, it might be already too late to save the country. Yeah, so yes, I agree.
I kind of agree with Wonbin, but I think it's not just all about money. I think population policy should kind of shift its paradigm away from simply just filling the numbers and more toward protecting individual choice and quality of life before money. So while cash-based support may increase birth figures in the short term, I do not believe it can serve as a fundamental solution in the long run. Instead, greater focus should be placed on improving the quality of life and welfare of younger generations, and ultimately change the mindset of women who are in their ideal childbearing age by actually seeing and believing that raising a child and starting your own family is something that money can't buy, and it brings so much values in life. It's a true source of happiness that far exceeds just one's freedom that they can get by staying single. So I think offering cash incentives can't really change a person's mindset when it comes to having a child, because there are so many different huge factors that actually come into play when they actually decide to make that big decision. Oh, am I going to get married? Am I going to have a child, or even 2 kids or 3, so on, or start a family? So I think if you have cash incentives, yes, it may be a source of kind of motivation, but in the long run, it's not just about money. It's much more than that. Won Bin.
I partially agree. Yes.
And I can see why the government is offering cash incentives. It's like almost not kind of an easy solution, most evident, because obviously like housing is such a big issue.
Right.
To get housing, you need money for that.
It's kind of like a first aid kit. So for example, when a bleeding happens, a first aid kit doesn't fundamentally solve the whole problem, but it does the first steps to block it
temporarily.
Temporarily until proper cure and healing can be done to it. Yeah.
Right. I think what you said earlier about how showing women, or both men and women, that having children would be nice, it will improve their life. It's a way to do it, but I guess it's hard to think of how to do it. Maybe there should be more shows to show how it's like an ideal life to have that nuclear family. I mean, it's hard to think of, I guess, practical ideas to do that, though. So in other words, improving quality of life may matter more than simply offering larger cash payments. So it is a debate with no easy answers, and one that many countries will continue to face. So we also wanted to hear directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on Yada News YouTube channel asking, should the government offer cash incentives to encourage childbirth? And here's what the results showed. So 69% said no, more fundamental solutions are needed, while 31% of viewers said yes, they are necessary. So the results show that while some viewers see financial incentives as an important tool, a clear majority believe the low birth rate crisis requires deeper, long-term solutions beyond simply providing cash support. But population concerns are not only about declining birth rate. Some countries are also debating how to manage population growth. So why are some countries considering, I was kind of surprised to hear this population caps one.
Well, the biggest reason, the biggest cause of this concept of having this population cap, it's not really directly from birth rate, but it's more from immigration and immigrants. Although technically immigration is related to the low birth rate, but the direct cause would be immigration. So what happens is when a big number of immigrants enter a country, regardless of this being right or wrong, the people who are born and raised in that country tends to form an anti-immigration mindset where they kind of go against the newcomers. And there are many different reasons for this, but in short, it's often due to the cultural differences or sometimes unfairness in terms of welfare and social support. Like, oh, why do they get health care when I was the one who was paying for my whole life and they just get it for free? For example, Switzerland recently held a referendum for having a population cap, and it's a law that capped the total population of Switzerland to 10 million, which includes all foreigners and immigrants too. And although it didn't pass at the end, 45% of the voters still agreed upon this, which shows how many people have conflicts or emotions towards this problem. And this isn't only for Switzerland, this problem is very common among most of the developed Western countries.
This reminds me of like China's one-child policy. I'm kind of surprised that Switzerland 45 is almost half of the population, so that is quite surprising. So this shows how population issues can become closely tied to debates over immigration, resources, and also national identity. However, population caps remain highly controversial, with critics warning of unintended consequences. And now for our second and last debate question of the day. So our panelists have their pals ready again. So are population caps a necessary solution for some countries, the countries namely facing overpopulation? So yes or no? What are your answers for this?
No.
So Kyun says no. This time, Kyun, do you want to go first?
It's a big no. Yes, I will. So in countries already facing low birth rates, a population cap will be a huge major blow to the economy. And as an example, like what Wonbin just mentioned, adding to what Wonbin mentioned about the recent referendum held in Switzerland, other than the 45% who voted for the population cap, the Swiss government had expressed its opposition to the proposal even before the referendum, warning that it could cause economic disruption. In a statement issued ahead of the vote, the government warned that a population cap could undermine national stability and adversely affect economic growth and prosperity. The government, along with voters from the capital Bern, where large companies are concentrated, which obviously affect the overall economy of Switzerland, they were highly against this population cap, and they welcomed the rejection of the proposal, showing a stark contrast in views. But it clearly shows that they're very against, and they're arguing against population caps as it directly affects one country's economy.
Well, if we look at the other side of the field, many recent cases demonstrate that simply just accepting more immigrants and newcomers to the country doesn't necessarily boost the economy of the country. For example, Canada and Australia, Germany, and the UK has accepted a massive number of immigrants since 2017. However, the economic performance didn't really show any noticeable changes. And on the other hand, and in fact, it was actually causing a number of side effects, such as rent prices going up rapidly and lacking public infrastructure due to the sudden rise of the population. So accepting immigrants or newcomers, it seems like it causes many side effects or potential damages that are very difficult to turn back, that are pretty much irreversible. But when we kind of look at the effect or the reward that we get from it, it's unsure. It's not guaranteed. So I think the country should take a bit more of a cautious approach. So I think the country should set a population cap.
I just saw a clip yesterday from with Marco Rubio, who was talking about the difference between what he thought was the difference between mass migration and immigration. He was saying how it's leaning more towards mass migration these days, and a lot of countries don't have infrastructure set in. So he's saying it would be harmful to both people that are coming into the country and also people that are there. So harmful to both sides. I thought that was quite interesting. He compared mass migration basically to a rain. He said rain is important. Like he's in support of immigration, but at the same time, floods are dangerous for everyone. So I think that was an interesting take on that.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Right, it was quite interesting. So it seems the debate is not simply about how many people a country should have, but about how societies can balance economic needs, resources, and quality of life. And ultimately, demographic challenges are complex, and there is no single solution that fits every country. So we also want to hear directly from our viewers on this as well. So we ran a second poll on Arirang News YouTube channel asking, should countries impose population caps? And here's what the results showed. So 60% said no, suggesting that a clear majority remain unconvinced that population caps are the right approach, while 40% of viewers said yes, although significant numbers support limiting population growth. So the results suggest that while concerns about rapid population growth are real, most viewers believe setting a population limit may not be the best way to address them. So with that, we've explored both sides of one of today's most complex global issues. So after today's discussion, Kyun, what are your final thoughts on this issue? And what do you think then, this is a big question, I guess, what do you think is the best way to tackle these population challenges?
That's a tough question, but I think I had so much fun talking about this topic because it really relates to us the more we think about it. Because if we just think about ourselves and just our lives in this planet, we don't really need to consider all these factors. But if we think a bit more ahead about our next generation, whether we get married or not, this is becoming more of a serious issue. So I think demographic challenges are becoming more serious and over time may become catastrophic for some countries, including South Korea. So To curb this trend, the government lawmakers, along with experts in this particular field, really need to come together, put their heads together, and to come up with a long-term plan that can change the population crisis that fits their country's current status. Increasing or decreasing the population may not be the absolute solution, but rather restructuring areas that need immediate changes can help a country kind of redirect its path towards more of a sustainable future. And I think, like I said, mentioned before, encouraging more people to get married, one way could be like giving cash incentives, but like I said, that's not everything. It's the first step, like Wonbin mentioned, it's like the first aid kit, but it's not a cure, you know? So we need to think about what can really change young people's mindsets towards getting married and having kids. If you meet the right person, things will change, but that itself is not easy these days. I don't know why, because we have so much entertainment going on, you know. It's not, life isn't all about marriages, you know, but compared to our parents' generation, even our grandparents' generation, they didn't have smartphones and they had nothing else to do. So it's like starting a family, and they were born and raised in a family within that culture, saying you have to get married before 30. Like we had those age limits, but nowadays people are getting laid much later in their lives, and because there's so much more to do, you know, pursuing their career paths. I don't know, studying more fun to do. You know, they just want to enjoy being single because, you know, that's YOLO. You know, you only live once. But at the same time, like, because I'm gonna get married very soon, my mindset has changed completely. You know, and like I was one of the people who thought, I'm not gonna get married. I can't get married. I'm not gonna have any kids because I'm not gonna get married, obviously. But now everything has changed. But
so what do you think has changed? What do you think the government could do to help other people change their mind?
That's going to take way more. It takes a whole another session.
But, you know, like housing problems, that's obviously the biggest factor. We need to change that first.
I guess that would relate to encouraging young people to have children as well.
Exactly. I mean, if you live in a small place, how are you going to raise a kid?
Right.
You know, like that infrastructure, you need that kind of environment.
Right, it can't just be a small area.
Exactly. That's just going to cause more stress, and it's going to be like, it's going to snowball into like a bigger problem. So changing the fundamentals, you know, having a proper environment to raise a child is the beginning. But it's going to take time, but we need to make better changes right now. I know the government is trying to take the right step, but right now, like the housing prices are even going up in the opposite direction. So I think we need to find better solutions moving forward.
I guess that's an area that the government should continue to work on, though. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't think there's anything more for me to add on the overall population problem. That Kyun just did a perfect explanation of everything. So I know this is a little bit off topic, but I just want to touch a little bit on the immigration and the social conflicts that occurs because of immigration. So as someone who studied in Canada, I personally witnessed the conflicts between people who are born in the country and the newcomers to the country. There are many conflicts, there are many fights, people are very sensitive to each other, and it usually came because, again, from cultural differences and lack of respect and lack of understanding each other. And I think that is one of the core reasons why people build up this anti-immigration mindset, and which also leads to these extreme proposals such as population caps. While these laws can definitely help to regulate the country, I guess this is a bit of a different fundamental approach. I think it's, you know, there's a saying that says, we can't enforce people to love each other. Like, you can't just set a law that says, okay, you two will love each other. Then that doesn't mean that, okay, we're in love now. It's a person-to-person interaction. We have to communicate. We have to understand each other. So majority of the conflicts, or at least more than half of the problems, social conflicts that comes from immigration, I believe that the regulation can help, but it also should start from people understanding each other, taking a step back, trying to be a little bit more considerate. So there's the regulation side that should be dealt with, and there's also a problem that we as a nation, as a society, should solve too.
I love what you said there because I think it's so important. I think a lot of the wariness and defensiveness kind of comes from not understanding why a certain person is acting that way. And a lot of times it's tied to their culture. So I think raising understanding of other people's culture, all the different cultures, is an important step. So population challenges may look very different from one country to another, but they all shape the future in profound ways. And as today's discussion show, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and striking the right balance won't be easy. But what's certain is that these conversations will only become more important in the years ahead. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 in Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Kyun.
It's always a pleasure.
To have it also, Bongbin.
Thank you for having me today.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and may your weekend be packed with fun, not people. We are
News Generation.